The night she begged for help was the night he decided she was nothing. Backhand index pointing right. Where are you watching Amina's journey from? Comment your city or country below. The pain came suddenly, sharp and unforgiving, stealing her breath as she gripped the edge of the kitchen counter. At first, she told herself it was nothing, just another ache, another false alarm. But then it came again, stronger, deeper, pulling a cry from her throat before she could stop it. She whispered his name once. Then louder. Please, please, it's time. Her hand trembled as she pressed it against her stomach, feeling the life inside her push back, demanding to be born. This was supposed to be the moment they faced together. This was supposed to be the night he held her hand and told her everything would be okay. He stood a few steps away, already dressed, already impatient. His eyes didn't soften when he looked at her. They hardened. Not tonight, he said flatly, as if she had asked for something unreasonable. Another contraction bent her forward. She cried out, reaching for him. I can't do this alone. I need you. Please, just take me to the hospital. He sighed, irritated, like a man interrupted by something inconvenient. You always do this. The drama. The timing. She shook her head, tears spilling freely now. I'm in labor. I'm carrying your child. For a moment, she hoped he would see the fear in her eyes, hear the truth in her voice. But instead, he laughed, short and cruel. You think a baby will trap me, he said. You think this changes anything? He walked past her, grabbed the bag she had packed weeks ago with careful hands and quiet hope, and threw it toward the door. It hit the floor with a dull sound that echoed through the room. Get out. Her heart pounded louder than the pain. What? I said get out, he snapped. Scream if you want. I don't care. Take your pain and go. The words hit harder than the contractions. She stared at him, waiting for the moment he would stop, say. He didn't mean it, say he was scared too. But his face stayed cold. You're nothing to me now. What kind of man looks at a woman in labor and turns away? He opened the door and shoved the bag outside. Cold air rushed in, wrapping around her sweat-soaked skin. She stumbled forward, clutching her stomach as another wave of pain tore through her. This can't be happening. This isn't how it was supposed to be. She begged him again, one last time, her voice breaking. Please, don't do this. He didn't answer. The door slammed shut behind her. She stood there on the porch, shaking, alone, the sound of the lock clicking like a final verdict. Inside, the lights stayed on. Inside, her life had already moved on without her. She lowered herself onto the steps, breathing through the pain, tears falling freely now. The child inside her kicked, alive and fighting, unaware of the cruelty waiting in the world. That night, as life was beginning, she learned the truth about the man she had loved. His words cut deeper than the pain of childbirth, setting the emotional foundation of betrayal. Backhand index pointing right. Tell us, if you were in Amina's shoes, would you stay strong or choose another path? No husband, no family, just pain, and a child fighting to live. Backhand index pointing right. If Amina's courage touched your heart, support Glow Narrative by liking, sharing, and subscribing. The night felt endless as she pulled herself up from the cold steps. Another wave of pain crashed through her body, forcing a sharp breath from her lips. There was no one to lean on, no arm to steady her. The house behind her stayed silent, dark now, as if it had already forgotten she existed. She took one step, then another, gripping her stomach with both hands. Every movement hurt. The streetlights flickered above her, casting long shadows on the empty road. Somewhere in the distance, a car passed by, its headlights sweeping over her for a brief moment before disappearing. Life was moving on, unaware of the woman breaking apart in the shadows. She tried to call out once, her voice weak and shaking. No one stopped. A stranger crossed the street ahead, glancing at her swollen belly and twisted face, then looking away just as quickly. Another contraction dropped her to her knees, right there on the pavement. She cried out, not caring who heard her anymore. Why does the world turn its back when you need it most? Her hands trembled as she searched her bag for her phone. The screen lit up her tear-streaked face. No missed calls. No messages. She stared at the blank display, the silence louder than any sound around her. I really am alone. She forced herself back onto her feet, breathing the way she had practiced in quiet moments she never thought she would face alone. In, out. Each breath was a promise to the child inside her that she would not give up. A small convenience store glowed at the corner of the street, its bright light cutting through the darkness like a fragile hope. She dragged herself toward it, her legs shaking, sweat chilling against her skin. The bell above the door rang as she stumbled inside, drawing startled looks from the clerk and a few late-night customers. I need help, she whispered, barely able to stand. Someone pulled out a chair. Someone else offered water. Their kindness was simple, unfamiliar, and it broke her all at once. Tears streamed down her face as another contraction took hold, stronger than before. She clenched her jaw, refusing to scream, refusing to fall apart. An ambulance was called. She waited, counting seconds between pain, gripping the edge of the chair as if it were the only solid thing left in her world. Outside the window, people walked by, laughing, talking, living their lives as if nothing extraordinary was happening. Inside her, a battle was being fought, by a woman pushed away and a child determined to arrive. When the sirens finally echoed in the distance, she closed her eyes, exhausted, emptied, yet still standing. No husband appeared. No family rushed in. There was only her, and the quiet strength she never knew she had. That night, she learned that abandonment does not always come with silence, it comes while the world keeps moving without you. The world moves on coldly around her as she realizes she has truly been abandoned. In that hospital room, she was broken, but not defeated. The hospital room was quiet in a way that felt heavy, almost unreal. Machines hummed softly, lights glowed overhead, and the walls stood cold and white around her. There was no familiar voice, no hand to hold hers. Only the steady rise and fall of her own breath and the growing pain that reminded her this moment could not be delayed any longer. Another contraction tore through her body, stronger than anything before. She gripped the side rails of the bed, her knuckles white, her back arching as she cried out. Tears blurred her vision, sliding down into her hair, soaking the pillow beneath her head. Every nerve in her body screamed, yet she stayed. She endured. A nurse spoke gently, offering instructions, encouragement, kindness. It helped, but it did not fill the empty space beside her bed. She turned her head toward that empty chair once, then looked away. This was not how she imagined bringing her child into the world. With each push, memories flashed through her mind, soft dreams she once held, promises she believed in, a home that no longer felt real. The pain was overwhelming, but somewhere beneath it, something else was growing. Not fear. Not despair. Strength. She cried openly now, not just from pain, but from everything she had lost in one night. Her body shook, exhausted, pushed beyond its limits. And still, she did not stop. How does a woman find power when everything has been taken from her? The final moments came in a blur of sound and movement. Her body moved on instinct, on will, on love she had never known before. One last push, one last cry, and then a sound broke through the silence. A baby's cry. The room shifted. The pain faded into something distant as a small, warm weight was placed on her chest. She looked down, trembling, and saw her child's tiny face, red and perfect, eyes closed, lungs fighting for air. Her sob turned into a breathless laugh as she pulled the baby closer, pressing her forehead gently against that soft, fragile head. Tears fell freely now, but they were different. These tears carried relief. They carried awe. Backhand index pointing right. If her strength moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Backhand index pointing right, and tell us, if you were in her place, how would you face betrayal and fight for your child? You're here, and so am I. She held her child tighter, feeling the steady heartbeat against her own. In that moment, the abandonment, the cruelty, the loneliness, all of it shrank in the presence of this new life. She was still wounded, still afraid. But she was no longer empty. No one else witnessed the promise she made then. No words were spoken aloud. But in her heart, it was clear and unbreakable. She would survive. For this child. For herself. Holding her baby, she silently promises survival. While she fought to feed her child, he rewrote the truth. Recovery did not come gently. Her body ached in quiet ways that no one warned her about, and her nights blurred into endless hours of feeding, rocking, and whispered prayers. The small room she now stayed in smelled of antiseptic and worn blankets, a place borrowed, not owned. Every movement reminded her of how close she had come to losing everything. While she learned how to be a mother alone, stories about her began to travel faster than the truth ever could. They said she was unstable. That she was difficult. That she had overreacted, created drama, and walked out on her own. His voice carried confidence when he told it, calm and convincing. Friends nodded. Relatives believed. It was easier to accept a clean lie than an uncomfortable reality. She heard the whispers through second-hand words and sideways looks. A nurse mentioned something casually. An old neighbor avoided her eyes. Even silence itself felt judgmental, heavy with conclusions already made. How can lies sound so loud while truth struggles to breathe? She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to tell anyone who would listen what really happened that night. But survival demanded more than explanations. It demanded strength, focus, and silence. I don't have the luxury to fall apart. She wrapped her child tightly against her chest and kept moving. Days became routines built on exhaustion. She learned to stretch every coin, to accept help without shame, to wake before the sun and sleep only when her baby allowed. She took small jobs when she could, work that paid little but meant food, meant warmth, meant one more day standing on her own feet. Her hands were often raw, her back always tired. She ate last, if there was enough. Yet every time her baby looked up at her, eyes wide and trusting, something steady formed inside her. A reason. A purpose. Meanwhile, he smiled in public, repeating his version of events. He spoke of freedom. Of relief, of a woman who had been too much. People listened because it was easier than questioning him. Easier than imagining the truth. She stopped correcting them. Instead, she let her actions speak quietly. She showed up. She endured. She built a fragile life from pieces no one else wanted. At night, when the world finally slowed, she held her child close and stared into the dark. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled her. Each breath was proof that she had survived another day. She was not the woman they described. She was stronger than the lies told about her. Meanwhile, she works relentlessly just to survive. What he never knew was that she was never powerless. Night settled quietly over the small room, broken only by the soft sound of her baby breathing beside her. The world finally felt still. No voices. No whispers. No judgment. Just darkness, and the truth she had carried in silence for so long. She sat on the edge of the bed, a single lamp glowing beside her. From the bottom of her bag, she pulled out a thin envelope, worn at the corners, protected as carefully as a fragile memory. Her fingers paused before opening it, as if the paper itself carried weight. Inside were documents she had never shown him. Never mentioned. Never needed, until now. An inheritance. Left to her quietly years ago by someone who believed in her strength more than she ever had. It was not sudden wealth, not something loud or flashy. But it was secure. Untouched. Waiting. She had promised herself she would only use it if there was no other way. And now, there was no other way. She looked over at her child, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the battles already fought for their survival. Her chest tightened with emotion, not fear, but resolve. How long can a woman stay silent when silence keeps her small? She traced the lines on the paper slowly, remembering the words spoken to her long ago. This is your safety. Not to depend on anyone. Not to beg. Only to rise. I stayed quiet to protect my peace, but not to protect his lies. Every insult, every lie, every night spent proving her worth replayed in her mind. He had believed she had nothing. That without him, she would fade, fail, disappear. He never imagined she chose silence, not weakness. She folded the papers carefully and placed them back into the envelope. This secret was no longer just hers. It was her child's future. A door that could finally open. She would not rush. She would not act in anger. She would move with intention, with clarity, with patience sharper than any revenge. For the first time in a long while, her shoulders relaxed. Backhand index pointing right. This is not just a story, it's a feeling. Backhand index pointing right. If Amina's courage touched your heart, support Glow Narrative by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Backhand index pointing right. Tell us, if you were in Amina's shoes, would you stay strong or choose another path? The power she held was not just money, it was choice. Choice to speak when the time was right. Choice to stand when they expected her to kneel. Choice to rewrite the story told about her. She turned off the lamp and lay down beside her child, one hand resting protectively on that small chest, rising and falling in steady rhythm. Tomorrow would look the same to the world. But everything had already changed. She decides the time to remain silent is not forever. He thought he had won, until his empire started shaking. From the outside, his life looked better than ever. New clothes. New friends. New stories about how free he felt. He laughed louder now, spoke with confidence, and told anyone who would listen that he had escaped a burden that once held him back. He called it a fresh start. His days were filled with meetings and handshakes, plans and promises. He walked into rooms like he owned them, certain of his control. Success followed him, or so he believed. He enjoyed the attention, the approval, the belief that he had made the right choice. But slowly, quietly, things began to slip. A deal he expected to close fell apart at the last minute. An investor stopped returning calls. A contract was delayed without explanation. At first, he brushed it off. These things happened. It was nothing. Then it happened again. And again. He sat alone in his office one evening, staring at his phone, refreshing his email as if answers might suddenly appear. The room felt smaller than it used to. The silence pressed in on him, heavy and unfamiliar. Why does success feel so fragile when built on cruelty? He began to notice the changes he once ignored. Conversations ended too quickly. Smiles didn't reach people's eyes. Doors that were once open now closed with polite excuses. He started to wonder what was being said when he wasn't in the room. Something isn't right. Sleep became restless. He replayed conversations in his head, searching for hidden meanings, missed signs. His confidence, once effortless, started to feel forced. He laughed less. He listened more. He trusted no one. At night, doubts crept in. Not about his choices, never that, but about his safety, his control, his image. He checked his accounts more often than necessary. He questioned his partners. He watched everyone closely. The world that once applauded him now felt unpredictable. He told himself it was just pressure. Just stress. But deep down, something unsettled him. A feeling he couldn't name. A sense that events were moving without his permission. Unseen forces were at work, and for the first time, he wasn't the one in control. His reflection in the mirror looked the same, but his eyes had changed. They searched. They measured. They feared. The life he built after her was no longer steady. Each small crack spread quietly, threatening everything he believed was secure. And without realizing it, the man who once walked away without regret now lived with constant unease. Confidence turns into paranoia. She didn't seek revenge loudly, she prepared carefully. There were no announcements. No dramatic moments for the world to witness. Her rise began quietly, in offices with closed doors and conversations spoken in low, careful tones. She dressed simply, spoke calmly, and listened more than she talked. This time, she did not rush. The inheritance was real, protected, and finally in motion. With guidance from legal and financial experts, she learned how to safeguard it, how to grow it, and how to keep it unseen. Every signature she placed felt like a step forward, not just for her, but for the life sleeping safely at home. She asked questions. She took notes. She studied contracts late into the night while her child rested beside her. The fear that once controlled her was slowly replaced by clarity. How powerful can a woman become when she stops explaining herself? She rebuilt herself piece by piece. A better home. Stable care for her child. Education she had once postponed. Each decision was made with patience, not anger. She was not chasing revenge. She was creating security. I don't need them to know. I just need to be ready. The world still saw the same quiet woman, moving carefully through life. No one noticed the foundation being laid beneath her. No one heard the strength forming in her silence. That was exactly how she wanted it. She learned the value of timing. Of waiting. Of letting others underestimate her while she prepared. Every meeting ended with calm gratitude. Every plan stayed private. There was no bitterness in her heart now, only focus. She no longer checked his life or listened to rumors. Her energy belonged to growth, not the past. The pain that once shaped her decisions now served as a reminder of how far she had come. At night, she watched her child sleep, breathing evenly, safe and warm. That alone made every effort worth it. This was not about proving anyone wrong. It was about building something that could not be taken away. Her strength was quiet. Her progress invisible. Her future, secure. Every move is calculated, patient, and invisible. Backhand index pointing right. If her strength moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Backhand index pointing right. And tell us, if you were in her place, how would you face betrayal and fight for your child? The woman he threw away returned, and owned everything. The hall was filled with light, laughter, and polished smiles. Crystal glasses clinked, music flowed softly, and people moved easily through the grand space, dressed in confidence and success. It was the kind of event where reputations were displayed as proudly as wealth. He stood among them, relaxed, enjoying the attention. This was his world. These were his people. He spoke easily, unaware that every step he took that night was leading him toward collapse. Then the room shifted. A quiet murmur spread as she entered. She walked in with steady steps, calm and composed, her presence undeniable. She did not seek his eyes at first. She didn't need to. The confidence she carried was different now, earned, grounded, unshakable. He frowned slightly, unsettled by the familiar shape of her face, the strength in her posture. Recognition came slowly, then all at once. His smile faded. Why does the truth feel so terrifying when it finally arrives? The host stepped forward, clearing his throat. Tonight, we also welcome a key stakeholder and the rightful owner behind several recent acquisitions. Her name was spoken clearly. Silence fell. She stepped onto the stage, every eye in the room fixed on her. She spoke with calm certainty, her voice steady, each word deliberate. She introduced herself not as someone's former wife, not as a victim, but as a woman of authority. Ownership documents appeared on the screen behind her. Numbers. Contracts. Proof. The whispers began, sharp and relentless. He froze. This isn't possible. She turned then, meeting his eyes for the first time. There was no anger in her gaze. No bitterness. Only truth. The same truth he had buried under lies and laughter. She spoke of integrity. Of resilience. Of stories rewritten by those who survive. Without naming him, without raising her voice, she dismantled everything he had claimed to be. People looked at him differently now. Questions formed. Trust cracked. He tried to speak, but no one listened. The room that once applauded him now watched him fall in silence. Faces that once smiled turned away. The power he believed was permanent slipped from his grasp in moments. She stepped down from the stage and walked past him without stopping. The woman he threw away did not return for forgiveness. She returned for justice. His world collapses instantly. She didn't destroy him, she outgrew him. The world had shifted in the blink of an eye. He stood in the remnants of his pride, surrounded by whispers and cold stares. Invitations he once counted on were no longer extended. Friends he once trusted kept their distance. The empire he believed indestructible felt fragile, like sand slipping through his fingers. Regret gnawed at him. Every harsh word, every selfish act, every moment he had thrown her aside played like a relentless echo in his mind. How did I let everything I loved slip away? Meanwhile, she walked away. Calm. Unhurried. Her child's small hand in hers, a promise of new beginnings clasped gently against her chest. The night air brushed past her, cool and liberating, carrying with it the scent of freedom. She had no need to look back. Nothing there belonged to her anymore, except the lessons, the scars, and the quiet strength she had earned. She passed the places that had once held fear and pain. Memories flickered like shadows, but they didn't slow her stride. Every step forward was deliberate, a declaration, survival was no longer enough. She was building a life where love, care, and security were hers to define. I am more than what they thought I could be, she reminded herself. Behind her, he watched, a prisoner of his own choices. The whispers had grown into a low, constant hum of judgment. Deals he thought were solid crumbled. Influence he thought untouchable was gone. And the woman he had dismissed, she was stronger, wiser, and free. Was this the life he wanted? To see her thrive while he remained trapped in his own ruin. The irony was not lost on him. Every lie, every betrayal had come back like a mirror reflecting the truth he refused to face. And she had turned her pain into power, her abandonment into opportunity. There was no malice in her triumph, only quiet certainty. She paused by a small park, watching her child play for the first time without fear or limitation. A smile touched her lips, soft and genuine. Freedom wasn't loud. It wasn't a spectacle. It was peace. It was the ability to breathe without looking over her shoulder, to plan without anxiety, to love without restraint. The story that began in betrayal and cruelty ended in serenity and empowerment. Her voice may have been quiet, but her presence was undeniable. She had survived, she had fought, and now she was truly free.